Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is Saturday night, February 2nd. Glad to be here, and had a little trouble getting into my chat room and into the system here, but finally made it in. And missed my show on Friday because I slept in. So, yeah, sorry about that for everybody who was tuning into that show. It's just a little bit exhausted and turned off both my alarm clocks. But I haven't done a show, for the whole issue, child abuse prevention, whatnot, and for a while. And I find, as a survivor, I haven't done too many shows talking about the issues that survivors face lately. I did all that with one child abuse survivor to another, and kind of have been moving on to work through biblical counseling material and whatnot with Mornings in the Word. But I appreciate everybody who's tuning in. A lot of people listen to my shows, and I thank you very much for taking the time to listen to what I have to say. And, over the years, it's been 3 years now on Blog Talk Radio, and got about 957 shows. And, I just appreciate everybody taking the time to listen. I mean, that's awesome. And it's a lot of work keeping up with all of my shows. And, these issues, child abuse just sits on my heart all the time, because I know that this is an issue that, like so many children worldwide, will face tonight, tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day, the next night. It's horrible. There's no other word for it. And there's so many people, really good people around the world, who are working extremely hard to try to stop this mess. And even within the system and the different things, different organizations that are in place that can't seem to make a difference. There's good people within those organizations that really care and really wish that, there was something that we could do to stop this madness, right? People working directly with children who have been abused and been removed from their homes, and people, working with the police departments and whatnot to try to get children out of homes who are being abused. It's just the court systems, there's good people everywhere really trying to change this. And yet it's still happening because the people that we're trying to reach, which are the abusers, don't want to know, and they don't want to hear it, and they don't want to change their ways, and so they just continue to abuse children, whether it's their own or somebody else's, right? And it's, people say, well, we need early, life skills for parents to be, so that they can learn how to properly care for their children. And we need to address the situation with, parents mothers and fathers who, moms and dads or whoever they are that are going to be looking after these children with, who have chronic drug use problems and chronic mental illness, or who knows, any number of situations, Well, we never reach those people, right? That's any of those people. That's why child abuse keeps happening. Not reaching the people that we need to reach, and that's those who are abusing children. The rest of us out here talking about these issues and whatnot, we all tend to reach the same people, which is the people that care and want to see this mess stopped. And a lot of us are survivors, but not all of us. There's all kinds of people working to stop, and promote prevention of child abuse who have not been abused. But then there's a whole lot of us that have been that do this work as well. And, it's so frustrating. It really is absolutely frustrating, because what do you do when a parent or someone else, even if it's not a parent, family member, stranger, a neighbor, decides that they're just going to abuse a child? And they're just going to do it, and without somebody stepping in who has the ability to make a phone call the police, report it as a crime, and do something to help that child will suffer. And that child will continue to suffer, and possibly even be killed without anybody doing anything about it. Most people will not make a call, even if they do. A lot of those calls just go through the system as, checked off as not being worth investigating. And then, you see these reports coming up in the headlines 3-4 months later where the child's been killed, but there were several to, hundreds of reports made that were not investigated, right? It's heartbreaking because we're talking about human life here. We're not talking about, an inanimate object. I mean, we're talking about a human life. And people, I don't know, for some reason, can't relate to the issue of child abuse. I don't know if it's because adults can't remember being a child or something, or so many times adults were treated, which is great and wonderful, and that's what we would like to see worldwide, is that children be brought up properly, with love and care and all of their needs being met as much as possible, right? There's a lot of people that don't realize, what it would be like to be a child who's living in an abusive environment, domestic violence, just any number of things. Like it's horrific, It's not always familial, it's not always the family, but the larger percentage is. And that's why I focus on it, and also because that's where I suffered as a child, being abused as a child, was within my family. But there are children who grow up in these perfectly loving homes who end up being abused by a neighbor, a coach, a teacher, a babysitter, a church, elder, who knows? I mean, it's like whoever has access to the child, right? Daycare, you name it, after-school programs. It's wherever the child is, right? It's whoever has access to the child. That's where the abuse takes place. And they always say, well, limit one adult, one child situation. Well, that's okay, and that works if you got another honest and decent adult in the situation. But sometimes there's situations where whole daycares are built around pedophilia. That the whole daycare staff are all involved in the abuse of these children, right? It's absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific. And I mean, and that's not even addressing the child sex trafficking industry. I mean, this is really pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Like, if I didn't have to work to earn a living, which I do, because otherwise I can't live and I'll be on the street or living off of the government and welfare and stuff. I have to work. If I didn't have to work, I would be working to create huge amounts of public noise regarding the issue of all abuses against all children worldwide. But it's unfortunate because I got to spend most of my day away working, to earn enough money to pay my rent, right? But there are people out there who could do this, but they're, for some reason, for whatever reason, ashamed to talk about it, or they're afraid that their friends won't like them anymore if they start talking about it. Well, chances are that's probably the truth. The minute you mention anything about child abuse, people just kind of, oh boy, okay, I don't think I'm going to hang out with them anymore, because they just talk about stopping child abuse. They're no fun. It's like you just lose friends. I didn't have very many friends, but I've lost some friends because of it, and that's okay, because they obviously weren't my good friends, or they wouldn't have felt that way, right? But it's just unfortunate. It's really hard to find people who are willing to stand up and create some noise and some public awareness regarding child abuse. I saw a commercial on TV, which I thought was just awesome, because you hardly ever see anything on TV about stopping and preventing child abuse. And this one commercial was for the Kids Help Phone, and in Canada, Kids Help Phone. And I thought, right on, go for it, man. Post that sucker, put that on every channel, periodically throughout the day and through the night. And, because people need a big reminder that this stuff is happening. Just because it's not affecting somebody right now personally doesn't mean that a child's not being abused in some way, right 2 doors down from them, on the same street they live on, or 2 blocks away, or two intersections away, in the next city, in the next, town. I mean, this stuff is happening all over the place all the time. And people say, well, this is not our business, we shouldn't get involved. People have the right to discipline their children. Well, we're not talking about discipline. We're talking about abuse that kills and maims, and if it doesn't kill, it will maim and cause serious injury and problems for the child. It doesn't even have to be physical. We're talking psychological. We're talking emotional. We're talking, issues of the mind. People warping their children, other strangers warping other people's children. It's just absolutely horrific. And we're talking about child sexual abuse, which nobody wants to talk about. But too bad, because I talk about it. And that's why I have a discretionary warning on my show and everything that I do regarding child abuse issues, right? And it's such a huge issue. People just want to leave that one just shoved right under the carpet. Oh, we don't want to talk about that. Oh, no. Yeah, no, we don't want to, but you know what? That doesn't solve the problem. People say, well, talking about it doesn't solve the problem either. Yes, it does. It's at least one step in the right direction to solving this mess, which is to first of all, shout out to the world who doesn't seem to really care that children are being abused and children are being sexually abused, and this is incredibly wrong. There's a huge portion of society that thinks that it's perfectly okay and that people should be allowed to abuse children in any way they want, especially sexually. There's a whole group of people that lobby the government every year for adult child sexual relations to be made legal. Well, this is sick and wrong, and I don't care who anybody is. I really don't care. I don't care who they are. It's wrong. It's wrong. It will never be right, and it's just wrong, and that's all there is to it. We need stiffer penalties. I mean, we need so much stiffer penalties. We need legislation to step in there, man. We need people to fight this thing. And you see people doing it. Aaron Marin, right on. I mean, there's so many. I can't even begin to list them off that are working to fight against this thing and have got a large, momentous step in the right direction going, because it's a fight. It's a fight. There are people that want to legalize this. They think it's just fine. Well, it's not fine, It's not fine. It's not okay. And people say, well, it's just a real shame. It's like, well, no, it is a real shame. But you know what the real shame of it is? Is like for people like me, who suffered sexual abuse as a child, having to walk around in pain because of it. Not only just physical pain, but pain in my heart, pain in my soul, Like people say, well, you just have to get over it. Okay, you get over it, I mean, it's absolutely pathetic that people think this is all right. And that, the survivor should just be able to get over it. Oh, have some therapy and some counseling and you'll be all right. It's like, yeah, okay. That's so incredibly wrong. It's not even funny. This stays with me for life. For life. Even if I could foster a child, care for a child, I don't think I'd ever want to adopt a child. I don't really, my feelings on that are pretty much just what they are. I think that fostering a child would be the way to go if you would like to, have a child. I can't have children. Why can I not have children? Because I was sexually abused as a child. And this is something, this is so harsh. It didn't seem to have a huge effect on me when I was in denial. But when the reality hit me, it was a huge problem for me to deal with. Because the reality of this whole heinous abuse that was perpetrated against me as a child, I couldn't run from it. There was nowhere I could go. It was just there. You can't get away from it. Lots of people do, and they split off, and try, or they'll do drugs, or they'll have to go for, be on prescriptions and whatnot. I'm just going to plug my headphones in here. Just give me 1 sec. Yeah, this is the reality. It's like, to deal with this stuff is hard. And you know how many people are out there sexually abusing children, like right now? Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. And when they get caught, what do they get? They certainly don't get what they deserve. They're not getting the penalty that they deserve, for doing what they've done to a child. This is just it's so incredibly wrong. And I I just, like, I'm a high functioning person. I function within society quite well. Even though I grew up in a completely dysfunctional, abusive home where there was no normal stuff going on at all. And the only way I actually think that I've actually been able to do this is to watch very closely other people that I consider to be quite normal, other families, other people, teachers. I paid a lot of attention to how people interacted with each other outside of my home, because my home was so insane that it's the only way I could actually learn how to get along in society, because I had personality problems as a child because of the abuse that I was suffering and the way that I was growing up. You can't grow up in that environment and not be part of it. You know what I mean? It's like, I had behavioral problems. All kinds of problems growing up. And even as a teenager, rebelled and did drugs and, didn't get into too much trouble, but nearly killed myself a few times with car accidents and friends. Just not doing well at all. And, all just trapped in this dysfunctional head trip that my parents had placed upon me, and the rest of my family was still suffering through with it, and trying to survive in this world that says, you know what, you don't fit in. So in order to fit in, I had to start really changing my behavior, changing the things that I would say, things that I would do. Had to change a lot of stuff just to be able to get along in society and keep a job. Where two of my brothers couldn't do that and ended up killing themselves. But they could not fit in with normal society at all. Like they couldn't be a part of it. They were part of the criminal element. They were always in trouble with the law. They were always in trouble with other people. They could not get along in the world because my parents couldn't get along in the world. My parents were manipulative and psychotic, and they could hold jobs down, but when they came home, they got to be their real selves at home, right? Which was insane. And so, trying to grow up in that was hard. It was extremely hard. And people would say, well, it's no big deal. You just have to just get over it. It's like, well, you get over it. I haven't been able to progress past the age of 19. I can't even have a normal conversation with somebody my age, because I'm not on the same level with them at all, It's a serious problem. It runs so much deeper, like so much deeper than people want to admit. It's a real problem. That's why you see a lot of survivors will band together, because they can relate with each other. It's not a pity party. It's like, how do I even relate to the people around me when I've been stuck in this hellhole? Lots of survivors would call it hell. And then have to learn how to get along and how to do things in this world, and how to be able to get through the day, and how to be able to just deal with the fact that, I can't have children. Wow, I could have fostered, but I was too screwed up to do that. There was no way I was going to do something like that, especially after I lost my baby. The reason why is because, I was told that I would never be able to carry a child. If I did, it'd be a miracle, and that if I even got pregnant, it'd be a miracle. So I never even expected to get pregnant. But when I did get pregnant, they said, well, you may not be able to carry it, but you just have to have faith. And halfway through the pregnancy, I lost the baby. But the real reality of it hit home. The reason why I was unable to have children, as I had been told when I was 21. And, it's just, these things you just push in the back of your mind somewhere way back there so you don't have to think about it. Well, that's what society is doing. Society just pushes this stuff way back because they don't want it to think about it, And you can't blame people. You can't blame people for not wanting to address the situation of abuse. Even within homes, people don't want to address it. People don't want to have to deal with it, It's a huge issue that it's. I mean, my mother, I told my mother that what my brother was doing. That it was incest, and my brother was 13 years older than me, and I was 8. He was 21, and he was mentally ill, and he was very sick, and he was a drug user, and he was abused. And so my mom didn't want to do anything about it. She knew. I told her what was going on, and she was my main abuser, so she did absolutely nothing to help me. But my mother was also a victim, right, within the home. So victims in a situation in abuse will quite often not do anything about the abuse of another child or another sibling or whatever, because they're stuck in that dysfunctional way of thinking too. They're manipulated as well. They're brainwashed. They're screwed in the head. You know what I mean? You can't help it. I mean, people. That's why I wrote my book, A Life of Death, Redemption, and La Vida Juvies, and One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, The Journey, because I wanted people to get inside of my head, because that's exactly where those books are coming from, is right inside of my head. You get a bird's eye view of what it is to be abused, what it is to walk that hour by hour, day by day walk through life. It's hard. It's hard, you know, and that's why I work really quite hard to get the word out to other survivors, you know, that not to give up, not to ever let the abusers win, because this was not our fault. And you know, it's, what do we say to these little kids? You know, what do we say to these children that are being abused right now? That, you know, that may or may not get help. Probably won't. So many won't. There won't be hardly any that make the headlines. There'll only be a few that make the headlines, and the rest are just going to die and end up in the morgues and the body bags, you know. And if they don't die, well, then the rest will be in the other portion will be in the hospital, due to the abuse. Will they be removed from the home? Chances are not unless it's life-threatening. People get away with all kinds of horrible things, you know, doing horrible things to children, and child ends up back in the home because the courts deem that it, or whoever makes these rules and decides, you know, oh, it's not life-threatening, so no big deal. Yeah, no, it's a big deal, I tell you that, you know. Like, I can't even walk down the street. I can't even walk down the street without the pain of being abused in my body. It's a daily thing for me. And, you know, yeah, I paid the price. I paid the consequences because the people around me did not do the right thing. You know, and who's paying for it? Me. My abuser mother is dead, long gone. My abuser brother killed himself at the age of, 33. He was a very sick man, and he killed himself. Yeah, there you go. My abuser dad is, I don't know if he's still alive. I think he's still alive, but he's extremely old, and he's mentally ill, and he's got a lot of support. He's got a lot of people around him because they think he's just a nice old man, but they don't know who he really is and what he did. So, I mean, you know, what do you do? Yeah, what do you do with that? See, my dad, when the last time I talked to him, he doesn't care. He's just like, oh, well, it was the 1960s, it was the 1970s. It's like, what does that have to do with anything? You know, you abused your family because it was that era. It was just the era to do that, you know. No, he's a sick man. And it's just, you know, it's absolutely horrific what people will do to their children and cause their children to, and people say, oh, you can't cause somebody to do something, and, you know, everybody's responsible for themselves. Well, actually, that's true. Everybody is responsible for themselves. But I absolutely guarantee that if my two brothers who killed themselves had grown up in a loving home, in a caring home, if we had all grown up in a loving, caring home, I seriously doubt that my two brothers would be dead right now. And I seriously doubt that my brother would have sexually abused me right at the age of 8 years old. I doubt it. I really do. Because when there's love and care and family, you know, togetherness, let's do this as a family, you know, support for the children, and get out there, kids, and do the best you can, and we love you. And when you grow up with that kind of stuff, you may still have some minor problems with your children, but it's not going to be the same result than when you're beating your children, kicking your children, threatening to kill your children, beating on your wife, and causing your children anguish of every kind on a daily basis. That will kill children. Even if it doesn't kill them physically, it will kill them down the road. So, yeah. No, I know why my two brothers killed themselves, because I wasn't suicidal, but I had thought about suicide my whole life. And I had, especially after, I'd say about the age of 10 years old. And I was, always considering it. It was always a possibility until the age of 42. So I didn't go through with it. One of my other sisters, my oldest sister, who was the oldest, she was suicidal. And so, my parents were suicidal. So there you go. But the thing is this is what happens. This is what happens when kids slip through the cracks and slip under the rug. This is what happens when we all just close our eyes. The kids pay the price, right? So don't close your eyes, man. You see some abusive situation going on with children, you report it as a crime to the police first, and then you do whatever else you want to do. But phone the police, report it as a crime. It needs to be reported and logged as a crime, because child abuse is a crime. It's against the law. It's a crime. It's punishable by law, and you could save a child's life. We could save a child's life just by paying attention and not closing our eyes to abuse, right? So, do what you can, get involved where you can. All kinds of great organizations out there doing great stuff. And, doesn't have to cost money. It's just about awareness, and watching out for those kids around you. If you work with children, or if you have the ability to, to look in to make sure that kids aren't being abused, make sure you do. And then do the right thing. If you suspect abuse, and make a phone call and get that child some help, or those children some help, right? You may be the only one that makes that phone call. Be that one, right? Have a great night, everybody. Talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.